'Twas Britain and the slithy Gove did gyre and gimble with the May, or mimsy was the Bosogrove, and Corbyn wraiths laid graves.
Hello, and welcome to the show. Colourful conversations with Clergyman Pete and Businessman Mark. This week, Brexit, drinking in the Last Chance Saloon. Theresa May has told her sternest critics that getting rid of her as Prime Minister would not make delivering Brexit any easier. Mrs May has defended her draft agreement for leaving the EU and has said that even though there have been many critics, this is a key moment for her to pave the way to Brexit. Now, many people believe that the UK's future is in bad hands. Jeremy Corbyn, on the other hand, said that Labour could get a better deal in time for Brexit. Well, the corridors are bustling with disgruntled politicians, and it does make me wonder, where does Theresa May stand now? Are the numbers up? Back from Brussels, more jet-setters, tough Tory tussles with Brexit go-getters, the House hustles their political betters and flex their muscles with aides and abettors, the corridor rustles. Voila! 48 letters. Yes, that's right, because Theresa May will fight for her leadership if 48 members of her own party will put in writing that they could actually now challenge for a confidence vote. Now, if the chair of the 1922 committee of the backbench Conservatives, Graham Brady, receives letters, which is around 15% of the party's MPs, a secret ballot is triggered. Yes, Mrs May. Where does it all go from here? So, Clergyman Pete, if Mr Brady does get his 48 letters or more, are we now on the precipice of changing leader, government, and do we have to go all the way back to the beginning on Brexit?
Yes. Well, look, I think that Brexit has been misunderstood, sadly misunderstood, a bit like a little child who, just fondly wants to, go out and play, and he's accused of, going to attack another child. And all he wanted to do was to go out the door and get on with things and play by himself. And in the same way, the desire to leave the EU has been widely misunderstood, why people voted. And I think it's been misunderstood deliberately, in that people who wanting to remain just like that classic idea of someone putting their fingers in their ears and singing loudly in order to not hear the other side of the story. And Theresa May is one of those remainers. I mean, we always knew it really, although she didn't campaign actively against the Brexit situation. She did had openly voiced her opinion that she was one who wanted to remain, and so the whole tenor of the negotiation has been on that sort of level, that Theresa May really wanted to stay, but I suppose I have to do this, and it's had that sort of feeling to it. There was no real push, no drive, and as soon as you've got that situation in a negotiation, you're really not heading for success, especially if the people on the other side have a lot of drive and determination to keep the money coming in from Britain and to keep their project alive. And so even without any other sort of more dire undercurrents that may well be present, we're heading for failure with Theresa May.
Well, indeed, and as we speak at this moment in time of broadcast, the number of letters are piling in. So some people that have already declared their hand, effectively putting in their letters, are individuals as follows, such as Jacob Rees Mogg, as we know, has been an open critic of Theresa May and the situation. Many other MPs, such as Andrea Jenkins, MP for Morley and Outwood, Philip Davies, Davis, MP for Shipley, and then it goes on, and Nadine Dorries, MP for Bedfordshire. We could keep on going. Now, at the moment, we're well over 25, and there could be much more. Now, remember, we have to get to the 48. Yes. Now, the whole point behind this is that the 1922 committee, which was formerly known as the Conservative Private Members Committee, ironically, wasn't set up in 1922. It was set up in 1923. Yes, I know. And that, to me, actually does sort of show a sense of irony about can the Conservatives ever agree on anything?
Well, as we were saying earlier, it's known colloquially as the 22, and there's 18 people on the committee,
exactly.
So it's just thoroughly confusing.
Which does say something about a party, doesn't it? But of course, obviously, this 1922 committee will receive a number of letters. Now, the point being is this: if we look at the situation right now, and there is a ballot that's triggered, are we now saying that really we've got ourselves into a situation where no matter what happens, Theresa May is not the right person to see it through? The deal that she is putting on the table is pretty rigid in the sense that she will not move. There are people who are really concerned about the Irish borders and many other things, incidentally, in a document which, ironically, is 585 pages long. Now, there is something that I would say about this document. Now, many politicians and even business people have pored over this document, and it does talk about the transitions. It talks about the economy, the money, the financial system. It talks about citizens' rights and many other things. But there's something about the document which is unclear, and I'll give you a little bit of an example. It's a bit like writing any great literary suspense. A great sense of anticipation comes from reading a good book with an intriguing plot. One is kept on the hook. Words evoke colourful images, sparking pure inspiration. Prodigious passages unfold, gripping the imagination. The art of the author writes with creative generosity. Charming characters emerge, capturing your curiosity. Each sentence is crafted, weaving such wonderful prose. You glide through the story as the style easily flows. But one thing, reader, truly cursing and hissing, is reaching the very end to find the last page is exactly. What is the outcome of this story? It's missing. What is the real outcome of our document? This document, as comprehensive as it actually is, gives us no clue as to what is Britain's future. Please,
yes. What's going to happen?
Write the last sentence and that last page that is clearly missing the future of Britain.
Yes. Now let's just ask you then, Mark, as you of the two of us, I'm the clergyman, you're the businessman. Negotiations are a hallmark of a businessman's career. So what do you think of the way negotiations have been handled? And then how would you change it? How would you do it better? Not that you're likely to be Prime Minister, not just yet, but when someone is put in place, whether it's Theresa May or someone else, how should they handle the negotiations going forward? And what have been the problems before?
Okay. To me, this is one of the things that you've sort of alluded to, but just to answer the first point, what was the problem?
Yeah.
When the nation decided to leave, the fundamental issue was that the people that were left to run the country, and most importantly, to run the Brexit negotiations, needed to be fully signed up Brexiteers. What we've had is that we've had a Prime Minister who wanted to remain. I do not see how you can negotiate if your heart and soul is not in it. And that's what we see in Theresa May. We have seen a bumble mess over the last 2 years.
Yeah, sure.
So what I would say is this. Yeah. The clear standpoint is this. May needs to go. She is not the person to negotiate the interest of Britain, to do the deal, to get out. That's the mandate. The mandate is the country has said, we want to get out of Europe. So what I believe is you have to have a Brexiteer in charge as the Prime Minister and as a Foreign Minister, and possibly one or two other people that could form what I'll call a Brexit committee. You can call it whatever you like, cabinet or whatever. But essentially, you have those people who understand the issues, both from a political point, a social point, a business point, an economic point, and so on. And law will obviously be a fundamental part of that. But those people who are a part of that committee have to be signed up. So to me, what I think we now need, and we're running out of time, and I probably suggest, and I know that many people would probably be throwing their dinner at their laptops or wherever they're listening to this podcast, but I would say that this is probably where we are now. I think we need to extend the deadline by 3 months. 3 months only, to go back to the EU and say March is not realistic now. I think that's probably the case because we're at a position where the people aren't going to sign up to the deal that 585 pages. So I'd like to add an extra page, which is 586, which is scrap the previous 585 pages. Now let's write an agreement that if we give ourselves 6 months, we will negotiate, but here is the bottom line. And it will be in red pen, ink, whatever you want to say, in blood. We are walking away if we don't get the deal we want. And I would probably put in my favoured candidate, not necessarily to be Prime Minister, but somebody to negotiate it, is Rees Mogg. I think he understands the issues. I think he's definitely a Brexiteer. He fully understands what I think needs to be done in terms of negotiations. And you need somebody with a clear position. He has a clear position.
Yes.
So for me, that's what I would do. And I know it means that some people will say, oh my goodness, more disruption. Unfortunately, this Tory government hasn't managed it well. May is not the person to get us to where we want to go, and that's what I would do. Get her out as fast as is legally possible. Go through a process. I hope that there are more than 48. I think that there should hopefully be well more than that. But anyway, you only need 40 to have a challenge. Incidentally, just from a technical point of view, that doesn't mean to say that she goes, because you still have to have the vote of no confidence. But I would say, please, MPs, negotiate her out, get somebody in. Now, whether it's Boris Johnson, whether it's whoever it is as a Brexiteer, to lead the party to then get us out of Europe, and then this is another thing. I then think that once we're in that position, you've then got a clearance to have an election, meaning that in 2019, that's the situation where hopefully the nation, the United Kingdom, will at least get a sense of relief that they know where they are with the deal, whatever, or no deal, whatever it is, and then they can vote back in a government to give a mandate to move forward. That's what I would do.
Yes. So I agree with that. I would say that one way of doing it that I think would make it less risky and would also concentrate the minds would be to say, on exactly the timetable that you outlined, but say, look, we're unless we get this extension and have a framework for negotiating further in place, the leaving and going on to World Trade Organization rules happens at the deadline, at the March deadline. You don't want it to do, but I would say, if they refuse to extend it or are not going to be renegotiating, that has to be when it is, because legally we've said we will leave. Britain will leave, not legally, according to the Article 50, which we agreed, we put into place. We
which is triggered by Theresa May.
By Theresa May, we'll say that say we're going to leave. It would be in March. It would be up. Now, of course, the negotiation would be up. So, if they're not going to play ball, that's when we have to leave. So we've got to be on WTO rules then. So you plan for that happening. Of course, you'll then say, "Oh no, we want to spend 6 months negotiating," but that's up to you. We need you to come to the table. I mean, what should have happened? Let's just go back a bit. What should have happened is something like you say, "We're going to we want to negotiate, but we have 2 years, but we'll take 1 year and have a deadline. It should have been, nearly a year ago now. March this year could have been the deadline for having something in place. So if it wasn't in place, we then going to spend the remaining year getting ready for WTO rules. If they'd done that, there would have been a completely different attitude from the EU.
Yeah.
Now, I further think that, my opinion is that Britain should have just repealed the Communities Act and left the EU, and the negotiations should have been from that position. But even without doing that, making plans to go onto WTO rules, which I've just said we can still do. No, it's not ideal, but there's still time. That means not only that it concentrates the minds, it puts the pressure on the EU, but it also means that you actually are getting ready for what may well be the case. That may be the situation.
I think there's another thing as well. I come back to my point, which the whole pretense of this show is that the basis of the show is the last chance saloon.
Yes.
And unfortunately, what's happening is that, using a metaphor, is that many of the politicians been involved with this, whether it be David Davis, etc., have just been drunk on policy, politics, infighting, and really they're just not clear thinking. They're staggering around, and they have staggered around to the point where they've fallen over the chairs, been lots of brawling, and really in the saloon it's not gone well. It's not been a pleasant place in which to drink. What I think needs to happen is that I come back to the fact that politicians, if you look over the last 2 years in particular, we've had recently the Brexit Secretary Dominic Raab, who's only really been in the role for 2 or 3 months, has also come to the table, being forced into this 585 pages of document, where he clearly has pointed out that things have been taken away from him. Remember, he was the negotiator. That was the point. And things which I know in his political rhetoric, he's had to be very, very careful. But I suspect that Theresa May has just almost like tapped him on the shoulder, asked him for his documentation, and scribbled back in some additional amends in the document. And he's looked at it thinking, but I don't want to sign up to that. And he's made it very, very clear, and this is why I believe that Theresa May has to go, because the people trying to negotiate can't negotiate because they've got a leader who doesn't want to sign up to Brexit and what the Brexiteers are really after. So you're hampered. It doesn't matter who you bring in. If you bring in another politician, the same thing will happen again. And so to me, you need a full 100% Brexit focused team. And that's the way to go forward. And if there's any compromise on that point, you're always going to get conflict. And that's what it needs. It needs a hard line now. So something like Mr. Rees Mogg, I think, would be excellent. I think he may have some foibles. He, as I've said in previous episodes, he seems like a character from a bygone era, but nevertheless, he is at a moment. So I come back to the point. We are at a moment, and the man for the moment, I think, could be him to actually get us to a point of resolution.
I mean, we haven't mentioned Boris Johnson, who's always talked about in terms of a leadership bid. Now, I guess he could go for the top job as long as you had Rees Mogg, say, as the Foreign Office, that being able to handle negotiations.
Yes.
We at Mark and Pete have our reservations about Boris Johnson.
Well, I think,
to put it mildly,
we're not the only ones.
Yeah.
I often wonder whether even Boris Johnson has reservations about Boris Johnson.
Well, maybe he did, but I think that the Slithy Gove has cut ties because he hasn't resigned, as you know. So we're looking maybe at someone. If we're going to have someone with the sort of common touch and charisma to be in that position, it could well be Mr. Haircut himself, Boris Johnson. But I'm, as you know, hoping for Rick Astley because he's an ideal. I don't know if people know Rick Astley, but he is an ideal candidate because he's never going to give you up, never going to let you down, never going to turn around, and he's just it's the sort of person you want. I think the country needs to be rickrolled.
Yeah, exactly. And let's just say that people are not playing to the same tune, and they're all out of tune. So whoever it is, please come in, sort it out. Now is the time, and I would say, in my opinion, I think Mr. Rees Mogg is the man for the moment.
Yep, in
I
Last Chance
wouldn't necessarily say that he has to be Prime Minister.
No, in Last Chance Saloon, it's time, gentlemen, please, get moving. Let's have those changes as soon as possible. Let's get that vote in. Let's get a new leader.
Yeah.
This may not happen, and we could be reporting in a future episode of Mark and Pete of how terrible everything is.
Well, what's your order at the bar, please? We're in the Last Chance Saloon. Please put in your orders now, and by doing so, log on to markandpete.com and let us know your order. We want to hear from you.
A pint of Junker tears, please.
If you have a pint of common sense, please. Well, listeners, thanks for joining this rather emotive subject, and I know that hopefully that someone, by the time we get on to our next episode, will have come up and served up a beautiful, beautiful answer. Well, thanks for joining the show, and join us again next time for more colourful conversations with Clergyman Pete and Businessman Mark.